Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Proline Recap Show. Going to recap the NFL Sunday. Going to take a look ahead to the Steelers-Titans game coming up on Thursday. First, got some information and ads to tell you about. I'm joined by Jim Feist and Fairway Jay. I'm filling in for Dave Kochen. And, Jim, you had another winning NFL Sunday. What do you have on the docket for this week?
The NFL's been a party, John. It's really good. 5-2 last Sunday, including a pair of high roller totals, Broncos Patriots and Chargers Saints. I have another monster play going on Saturday, but, you know, even reversing back to last night, we did have the under in the Jets game, and that pretty well was right there all along. And then we also had a lean to the Jets. A lot of money came in on Houston in that game, driving the game up to 10. I mean, double-digit favorites in the pros, never a good bet. Long-term 60% loser. We've been red hot in the pros. I have a monster play going on Saturday, which is my college odds maker error of the year for $250 online, but you can get it for $25 along with a guarantee. You will win the play or play the rest of the college football season, regular season, for free. Make sure you make the phone call to 1-866-841-1655. You want to get on board for this college package, and you don't want to forget about my pro games. That's 1-866-841-1655. John?
Well, Dave Kochen hit his college super total of the year. That was UCLA and Cal going over the total on Saturday. From Dave, you can get a pair of high roller window games going on Saturday. Two big college games. Those are $500 a piece. You can get both for $25. And if you sign up early, you'll get a TV bonus going tonight from Dave Kochen. All this for $25. 1-866-896-1629. Fairway Jay, you hit your shocker game of the month, and you've got another big play coming up this weekend.
Yeah, John, we've had some great totals going during the week. We started off Friday again with the BYU-Utah State game under the total, easy 6-3 final. That was our total game of the week. We come back with the shocker game of the month on Army outright. And then we follow that up with our revenge game of the month on Oklahoma. So it was a real good Saturday and a week in college. Followed that up with an underdog winner on Seattle Sunday. We lost the top total, but again hit another total in the pros. And we're offering the rest of October now for $15. That's our 5-star and par plays, both college and NFL. This week, our college game of the year goes as well. We'll include that. Just call 1-866-896-1627. We look to have another strong week again, John.
All right, well, there's only 2 undefeated teams left in the NFL, guys, one in each conference. Jim, what are some of your observations from the Sunday card?
Well, I'm going to go back to Thursday where Arizona was favored at the Rams. And Arizona, of course, at that point was undefeated. And when you look at a team that's winning everything based on one set of circumstances, basically their defense, you obviously have a flaw. At some point in time, they're going to have to score some points. And especially when they go up against teams that can also play defense, and they're in a compromising situation on the road as a favorite. Arizona is not that kind of football team. This is a team that cannot produce points. And as long as that continues, they're going to suffer. The Rams, under Jeff Fisher, they're improving. The loss of Amendola is a really big hit to them because they don't have a lot of depth of talent. Moving forward to Sunday card, Atlanta, Washington. Washington was in the game. Atlanta was very... to me, Atlanta and Baltimore have the same kind of situation. We talk about these guys... wide open offenses, no huddle, spread it out. But when I start to look at their production, they're not producing like other teams that have that same kind of philosophy. Baltimore scored 9 points. I mean, for goodness sake. And they gave up a ton of yards on the ground. I start to question whether their defense is capable of carrying them that much further, because they are aging. Atlanta, on the other hand, it might go back to the conservative style of the coach. Even though they're spreading it out, they're not producing the way they should be producing. They should have lost the game against Carolina. And unless they hurt RG3 in that game, which kind of made it easy for them to win the game. But I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with Baltimore. I wasn't impressed with Atlanta. Washington, RG3, they say he's a smart guy, and I believe he is. I've heard him talk, and he's got great. But you can't do that. You're smaller than those guys that are hitting you, fella. You got to get out of bounds. You got to roll. You got to get down. You can't take those hits. You can't get hit 100, 150 times a year and expect to survive. And you're going to end up like Michael Vick, always out, never playing a full season. Kansas City is an unbelievable mess. Can they run the football or what? They dominate on the ground, but they turn the ball over immense amount of time. Now they're going to have a quarterback change. They're still dangerous because they do have an offensive line that opens holes, and they got some great running backs. They're still a dangerous football team, but there's something missing there. Jay, I'm kind of dominating the conversation. You want to chip on some of those? I got a lot of other things to talk about. We got a whole card to talk about.
Yeah, Jim, I'll come and comment on some of those games and teams as well. Let me go back to the Thursday game. I know I had the under in that, and I know we all did, Jim, because of those that watch this show, Jim, Dave, and myself, we all came on here last week and talked about how that game would be a lower scoring game, and it played out just no problem at all. And your comments about the Cardinals offense is absolutely true. They're struggling offensively, and yet they have a good defense, and that's the same situation with the Rams. The NFC, the NFC West now, that division is holding up very well. In fact, Seattle and San Francisco now going into Week 5 have the top two defenses in the league in terms of yards allowed. But that game's set up with two weak offenses, two very above average defenses, and those are the kind of situations. We talked about how the totals have been marked up and that the game got bet down. So I think St. Louis is an under team until we see otherwise, and right now it looks like Arizona is a similar situation. That Falcons-Redskins game, Jim, you commented on, I agree. The one thing that we do as handicappers and analysts is, we can talk about these recap, but we need to learn from them. But we also want to project what can possibly happen in terms of improvements or weaknesses. The Ravens, you commented on, are an aging defense. I agree. I don't think they're going to get stronger as the season goes on, and I think their offense can maybe open up that spread and tempo and put up more points. But it's the Falcons that I think we have to look at. They have both a new offensive and defensive coordinator. Dirk Cutter is now a pass-first team on offense. They had almost a 2-to-1 pass-to-run ratio against the Redskins, and what I took from that game was that the Falcons ran, I think, over 80 plays in that game. So they controlled the ball, the clock, and then they can kind of pick and choose where they run it. But they are definitely a pass-first team now, and I think their defense will continue to get better as the season progresses. Mike Nolan is the defensive coordinator, and I think the players adjust to what's going on early in the season. And I think the Atlanta Falcons, they're winning these close games where they're not looking as sharp, but I think they'll continue to get better as the season progresses. So I think as handicappers, we can't just look at, okay, they had one bad game or they didn't look quite as strong. You have to see that the vision is this team's, adjusting to some coordinators. Are they having injuries? Is their personnel going to be fine, and then make the projection that they're going to move forward. I personally thought the line looked a little light this week with the Falcons at home under a 9-point favorite, 8.5, 9 against the Oakland Raiders, and I think that's because the Raiders come off the bye this week. But those are the things we want to analyze and look forward to. The bye weeks are obviously a factor coming in, and that played out for a couple teams this past week, including the Colts.
Yeah, you mentioned games going under the total. The Dolphins were a team that they were a 3.5-point dog at Cincinnati, and I talked to Jim last week about this game. I thought it was just too cheap a number on the Bengals. It seemed too good to be true. And I remember Jim saying, the odds makers aren't stupid. They put that number there for a reason, and you talked me off that game, and what did we see? The Miami defense impressed again. They not only covered, they won the game. They allowed just 298 yards to the Bengals. Very good Bengals team that was in the playoffs last year. Just 2 of 14 on third down. And even Ryan Tannehill's overall numbers aren't good. 2 touchdowns, 6 picks. The last two games, 431 yards and 223. I'm beginning to think that this Miami team is a little bit better than a lot of people thought, and they are tops in the NFL in run defense if you like to play totals.
Yeah, it's interesting. That is an interesting team to analyze. Everybody questioned, who the heck is Ryan Tannehill, and why are they drafting him so high? And when you look at him and you listen to the pundits on ESPN and other people that watch this guy and then know football, they say they're surprised at the amount of talent he has. He has a very strong arm. He seems to be intelligent. And Miami has lost 2 overtime games. Imagine if they'd have turned those 2 games around, they'd be actual contenders. Going back to something you said, Jay, going back to Atlanta, I'm wondering what kind of incentive. I mean, they've already locked up their division. They've only played a couple games, but the teams in their division are also bad. If this Atlanta goes 50-50 the rest of the way, they're already in the playoffs. They already got their division. So there's some really bad football teams in the NFL, and there's some really good ones. B+, maybe A, but it's a top and bottom league right now. The Cleveland Browns, they have Whedon at quarterback, 28-year-old rookie. I think the guy has a lot of upside. I mean, obviously being 28, it's not like a 22-year-old coming out of college that has all those years. He's going to have a short career, even if he does do well because of that age issue. That running back out of Alabama, or Trent Richardson, oh my God, he's a horse. This guy, they have some, I'm very impressed with Cleveland. I know they haven't won a game in like 20 years, but they are impressive, and they're going to come back and start playing better. At some point, they're going to put it together. They don't have all the talent, but they've got a couple spots covered. They're going to be a dangerous club. We do have a Thursday night game we want to talk a little bit about, and I might as well just hit on it. You talk about Chris Johnson not getting 24 yards last week. This guy, ever since he got paid all that money, which was a huge mistake, obviously, this guy is a bust. I mean, you'd be better off sitting this guy and putting a rookie in there. You'll get more effort. I guarantee you'll get more yards. And I imagine the offensive linemen resent this guy. He makes all that money, and he doesn't produce anything. And who knows if that has an effect. But this guy is a bum. At this point, he is a bum.
Yeah, they, Jim and John, the first few weeks I talked about, how he used these rushing guidelines, and that was a red flag to me to see the Titans come out of the blocks with a couple terrible rushing games. But then how the NFL can surprise you. They had 150 yards rushing against the Houston Texans on the road, and that surprised. But again, last week back to I thought the fundamentals may play out against the Vikings, and that was that if they don't run the ball effectively, Minnesota does that well, and Minnesota stops the run, and that's kind of at the line of scrimmage where they're struggling. But I agree, Chris Johnson just doesn't have what he produced in the past. Whether it's the offensive line not quite as strong, that must be the case. They're a bottom tier run team right now, and when you see the comments coming out of their game against the Vikings, when the players are making comments and they have real concerns and questions about themselves. We saw them, I think, after the 0-2 start, they came back home and beat Detroit, but still, they were outplayed that game. And statistically, they got out ahead, then they lost the lead, and they came back. But remember, that was a kick return, a punt return, an interception return. They were outplayed, and now they got to face a team that is stronger in the trenches. But again, I wasn't impressed with Pittsburgh this past week against Philadelphia, even though statistically they had better numbers against the Eagles. But they first half looked sluggish to me. I think this is a tough game again for Tennessee to come back even on home on the short week. We've seen these NFL Thursday road teams struggle a little bit more, but my initial inclination was to look this game under the total. But the reality is I think Tennessee realizes they got to put the ball in the air, and that's where Hasselbeck is better than their running game, and I think Pittsburgh has clearly shown that they've gotten away from their run-first philosophy. They rely on Big Ben a little bit more through the air. So I'm having a little toss-up on which way to go with the total. I'm going to look at some of the injuries a little bit closer as that game approaches. But Tennessee is a team, to me right now, Jim, they don't run it well. Their defense isn't producing, so there's some real concerns there.
Well, since we are talking about that game, and it's one of the things we wanted to talk about today, looking forward to a football game. Pittsburgh's an old team. Their running game, their passing game, their offensive line, even Ben, superstar quarterback, never really got the credit that he deserved over the years. But this is an old football team. Game opens 6-44. We're looking at 4.5-5, 42.5, 43. I don't
injuries,
have the weather
Jim.
forecast.
Injuries.
Yeah, I don't have the weather forecast for Tennessee at this point, but
I do.
You can always get some bad weather.
It's going to be
possible.
good weather, and it's going to be 60s, no rain, no wind.
Okay, thank you. Tennessee's a bust. Hasselbeck has been sitting a long time. He's not who he used to be. He's suffered a lot of injuries in his life. And I think the game's going to still be a on-the-ground game. You're not going to score a lot of points on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their defensive schemes are too tough. They have smart coaches. I still think the game's an underplay. Going back to what happened last week, there was a lot of movement last week on the Seattle Seahawks, where Carolina opened the favorite. They were 3-44. The game continually got bet down total-wise, and the money kept coming in on Seattle. And at one point, it got down to Seattle or Carolina pick or one. And I'm saying to myself, am I crazy here? Seattle's a terrible road team. They're 3,000 miles west to east. It's one of the worst scenarios you can possibly have, unless the game would have been earlier in the day, which it wasn't. But Seattle has a strong defense. Russell Wilson played a little bit better game. Their running game with Marshawn Lynch he is one tough runner, man, I'll tell you. But Carolina's a mess. Cam Newton, I think he still thinks he's Superman, but he's not. And he's got to grow up. He's got to mature. He is not mature, that's for sure. That's a team in trouble.
Jim, I look at the Panthers. I look at the Panthers, and I don't think they have an identity on offense. They run the zone, run read for Newton. They don't get D'Angelo Williams enough involved in the running game. They've got the capability to run the ball, and yet I just don't, other than the game against the Saints, which is a horrible defense in New Orleans, they just have not been able to produce. Now, we're seeing that Seattle is a very, very good defense, but for Carolina to run the ball just 19 times, 82 yards, they put up less than 200 yards of offense at 3.7 yards per play, which is, way below league. I mean, just a bad performance on their home field. That's a real concern. I agree with you. When I saw the money, I played Seattle, and then on Sunday morning I saw the line had come off of the 3, and they were taking a lot of money. I understood because of their defense, but I agree the situation wasn't too strong. But the one thing I'm taking out of a couple teams, Jim, that we're talking about, the Seattle Seahawks are 0-5 over under, meaning they played 5 games so far, all of them under the total. And what you have with that team is a good defense and a rookie quarterback, and a stud at running back. So Pete Carroll's philosophy right now is, especially early in the year, I'm sure wanted to see if Russell Wilson was going to be able to develop to what they want at the quarterback, but it was going to be more conservative. And that's why we're seeing these really low scores with the Seahawks. And I think there are some other teams like the Dolphins who know that their defense is pretty good. It's probably better than most of us thought. And that Philbin, I think, is doing a real good job with the Dolphins because he as well knows that he can't get involved in shootouts or high-scoring games to have a chance to win. Not with a rookie quarterback, not with his offensive personnel. And those are kind of the things when you're handicapping, you can look at these teams and just approach maybe at the total look that here's how the game will play out because they know they have to control the ball because they can't, if they play New England in a division game, that being the Dolphins, they can't outscore that team, so they're going to have to run the ball, control the clock, show short screens, and that's kind of when you handicap how you can look at these totals and evaluate, I think.
I'll make a comment about the bye weeks that they're going on right now. Everybody talks about teams that have they're coming out of the bye week, 2 weeks to rest and prepare, and yes, that is very important. Years ago, a handicapper in Vegas told me that he places just as much focus on teams that have the bye week on deck coming up. And the thinking is that the team says, hey, we play this one game, and then we got a week to rest. So let's give it our all for this game. And I was on the Bears on Sunday. They went down to Jacksonville. Remember, they were off that rugged win the previous week. But it was a situation where the Bears had a bye week on deck. And they went out and just flattened Jacksonville. They didn't need any kind of back-to-back road concerns at all with the bye week coming up 41-3. So that's something to keep in mind if you like to examine bye weeks.
I'd like to comment on that. The first 6 times teams had byes coming up this year, they all lost to the spread. The following week, there were 2 winners and 2 losers, which makes the year 2 winners and 6 losers for the year. Or, 8. 2 and 8. 20% proposition. Makes absolutely no sense to me. But aberrationally, on a short example, in statistics, you don't really follow that. 2 and 8. So does that mean the next 2 and 8? The next 10 will be 2 and 8? When you look back over a lot of years, it's really a 50-50 proposition. I happen to agree with John on what he said. You think, okay, this is a big game, we got to win it. So Chicago and New Orleans did that last week. They had the bye, and they actually did cover, but there were 2 other teams that did not. But logically, it's a 50-50 deal. But right now, this year, it's an 80% deal to bet against the team that has the bye week next week. I don't agree with it. Aberrationally, it's working. But I like your point, John, because logically I'd be on that too. Jay?
Yeah, one of the things I do every week is I jot down who's got the bye upcoming, who's off the bye, and analyze some of the profiles over a number of years that have worked out. But it still gets down to the fundamental matchups that I think the Bears showed that they had the right opponent to take advantage of in the Jaguars because, again, the Jaguars we're not going to – you could look at that game and say the Jaguars were not going to run the ball effectively on the Bears' defense, and it was going to put the ball in the game in the hands of Gabbert through the air, and that's not a good proposition. So the situation that didn't look as good with the Bears coming off a short week and having to travel on the road, that was overridden by just the fundamentals of the strengths, I think, of the teams. And that's another team I think we're seeing that the Bears' defense is very good, has some aging players, but they're showing that they're plenty strong. I wanted to just look at the rest of the games we commented on. I got to come back to that Chiefs game. I keep a lot of rushing and running guidelines, and there were some strong performances this week. The Giants rushed for 243 yards, Vikings 175, but the rest of these all over 200. KC 214, the Bears 214. How about the Patriots? 251 yards rushing after 247 the week before. We do not see that out of a Brady-led team, but they're showing strength there. My point of this is Kansas City Chiefs ran the ball 50 times, 50 running plays, 214 yards rushing. You win NFL games consistently with that formula, but they did have 4 turnovers. This team is a disaster. They get down to the 1 yard. They run the ball I think I'd made note. I was tweeting some things out. I think through 32 plays, they had run the ball 28 times with 4 passes. That shows you they had no confidence in Castle, and yet they get down to the 1-yard line, and they run a quarterback sneak, and he fumbles the ball away. And I just think this is bad coaching to me. If they can't see after 4 weeks and now 5 weeks that Castle is really, really a bottom-tier quarterback, they've got to evaluate. Well, now they're going to get the chance because Brady Quinn's coming in. But that's a team that has the fundamentals that I look for. They did cover the game. They covered the spread, but it should have been a win. And I still have some concerns. The turnovers usually level out, but this team's minus 15 in turnover differential. It's an NFL record through 5 weeks, and they've got a lot of things to clean up. But those are just fundamentally things I look for. Strong running teams, teams that can stop the run. And right now, Kansas City has some concerns now with the quarterback play in my mind.
Yeah, you could see the confidence go out of the Chiefs' offense when they fumbled at the 1 in the second half. They knew they weren't going to be able to score. It was really deflating.
And, of course, when Castle got hurt and the fans started to cheer the fact that he was hurt, obviously that was a disgraceful thing. And, I don't see – usually pro teams don't give up. I think Kansas City is going to be a very deep, dangerous team going forward. They have a lot of talent on this football team, Castle or not. Now, we give a lot of credit to quarterbacks when teams win, and we put a lot of blame on them when they lose. And I happen to have a different feel about that. Some of the worst quarterbacks in the league are with the winningest teams, and vice versa. You have to put things around the quarterbacks to make it work. First of all, they need an offensive line. Well, first of all, they need a good head coach. Secondly, they need a good offensive coordinator. They need a good offensive line. They need a running game that can do some things. And they need some wide receivers and tight ends and running backs that actually can catch the ball when it's close to them. A lot of the turnovers that quarterbacks get attributed to them are wide receivers, tight ends, running backs catching the ball, but dropping or letting it go. They're not doing a good job holding on to the football. I think I see more of that this year. Wide receivers especially are clumsy. They're not holding on to the football. Ball's bouncing up in the air. The defensive backs and safeties are picking it off, and they get touched. But that goes against the quarterback when it's not the quarterback's fault. I saw that with Romo. I've seen it with Castle. I mean, I'm not a big Castle fan, but he's not that damn bad. He can throw the ball. The guy's got to hold on to that damn thing. You can't.
We'll agree to disagree on that one, Jim and John.
What?
I said we'll agree to disagree on that with Castle, but we'll see.
Oh, all right. How about you and I can't go out and play quarterback in the NFL? It's not going to happen. We don't have the talent. It's hard to find guys that can actually play quarterback at that level. There's only a few of them in the world that can do it. Maybe there's 50 or 60 that you could plug into the 30-some teams out there that can do it, and do it well. But if you have a game plan, if you have everything working around them, you can take an average quarterback and make him functional. But you got to have other people.
Christian Ponder up in Minnesota is proving that
yes.
Early in his career, he's maybe showing a caretaker. But you're right. But my point about that is, he doesn't make the mistakes. He finally threw his first interception this year. And Jim, the comment about the tipped passes and things, those happen during the course of the game. I agree. But the quarterback at some point, they can't just stare down a receiver or stare down the short screen out of the backfield. The defensive lineman, that is a quarterback's responsibility. To look off a receiver and hit the other one so the lineman can't just see the quarterback's going to throw it to a specific receiver out of the backfield. So to me, Castle has made he's had 5 weeks, and every week it's been poor play to me. But we evaluate these quarterbacks and they're playing. We've got a lot of young ones making their, rookie debuts and second-year players, and you got to give them time. I agree, because it's the most demanding position, I think, in sports, and yet you've got a lot to learn, and there's a learning cycle and process. But some grasp it real quick, Andrew Luck, and others it takes time. But the point is that you're right. If you don't have the pieces around you, it's kind of magnified when their mistakes are made, because if their defense isn't good and can cover up those mistakes, you got more problems. But the quarterback is the one that pulls the trigger and makes a lot of plays. And Castle had 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles himself last week. That's just that's costing his team to me. And it's part of the evaluation when you're handicapping these at the line of scrimmage, and then the potential quarterback play, certainly.
Yeah,
Castle you don't have an A+ quarterback, when you don't have a Brady, when you don't have a Peyton or Eli Manning, you have a B+, a B- quarterback. And I don't think if you're not a B, you're probably not in the NFL anyway. But if you have that type of quarterback, you have to have a game plan that suits his abilities. You can't ask him to go out and be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Eli Manning. He's not going to be. You know that, and you have to have a game plan that he can manage the game. But the other players have to do their damn job. They're collecting a big paycheck, too. They're the best in the world at their positions. I mean, I'm not going to... Tony Romo, Des Bryant, give me a break. I mean, this guy, the only reason he's on the team is the owner likes the guy. He's not supposed to be there. He doesn't understand the playbook. He needs 7 guys watching him 24 hours a day to keep him out of trouble. He's supposed to not be there. Okay, so I'm not going to throw all these quarterbacks that are doing a bad job under the bus. I don't think it's all their fault. I think it's management. I think it's coaching. I think it's offensive coordinator, wide receivers. They got to do their job as well. But you know what? The quarterback gets the big bucks, so I guess that's what happens. But you look at Bradford. They paid him $50 million for the Rams. The guy has nothing around him, nothing. And then the best wide receiver he has, Amendola, was hurt last year. His running back, Jackson, was hurt last year. Now Amendola's gone again. Where are these guys going to get their points from? They've got to have people there to help them.
They pay him $50 million to hand the ball off to Steven Jackson. Okay, guys, let's wrap up. We got that Thursday game, the Steelers. It's been bet down to 5, so some early money coming in on the Titans. And Fairway Jay, you've got a blockbuster play coming up on Saturday. Tell us about it.
Yeah, again, John, we're going to come with our college game of the year this week. And for those that have followed the 5-star par plays, those are some of our rated plays. We had another winning week on those. You get those for just $15. Also, we'll include the game of the year this week, so you get those, a number of plays that have proven and won here, definitely the last 2 weeks. So you get those, and just simply call 1-866-896-1627. And of course, we'll have some midweek plays. We've already got something up and ready to go here on Thursday college football as well. And we'll evaluate the Thursday NFL game and look to have another winning week in the NFL as well.
All right, Dave Koken has a pair of high roller window games going Saturday. These are $500 plays a piece. You can get both for $25. 2 Saturday blockbuster plays from Dave. And if you sign up early, you get a TV bonus winner going tonight from Dave. 1-866-896-1629. And Jim Feist is ready to steamroll the books again this weekend. What do you have?
Well, like John, thank you. Another winning Sunday, 5-2 in the pros. You know, we talked about the Arizona Ram game. We had the under in that game. We had the Rams last night. We had the under in the Jet Houston game, and we had a strong lean to the Jets as well, going against all the money in the world that went against us. We had the Patriots and the Broncos over the total. That was a high roller. We had the Chargers Saints over the total. That was another high roller. I have a monster play going on Saturday. My college odds maker error game of the year, $250 online, but you can get it for $25 along with a guarantee. When you call, ask for the play. The rest of the football season is free if this game doesn't win. 1-866-841-1655. And obviously, you don't only want to get this game. You also want to ask about my pro package because, as I just pointed out, I've been red hot. Now, odds maker error game of the year, $250, $25 when you make the call, 1-866-841-1655.
All right, very good, guys. And we will see everyone on Thursday. There'll be 2 editions of Proline, a college and NFL version, and we'll see you all then. Good luck with the games, everyone.